Pradeep. Pradeep and many others spoke this morning about talent and team. How do you get there? One of the key things is, after having got them, how do you retain them? And how do you motivate them in an entrepreneurial environment? Pradeep, so that's the one of those points. But somebody who's lived it and has actually focused a lot on that is Kumar. And Kumar, could you talk about your experience?
Thanks, Ram, and good evening to all of you. In fact, I have been in this hall right from morning 9:30 right through the inaugural session and attending the whole entrepreneurship track. I can't see our Thai President Johnny here, but I don't know why Thai called me because I am not an entrepreneur myself. I have worked with somebody else's money for the last 37, 38 years. So, but still I can say that when I talk to Ram and Puditra about this, they will say Kumar doesn't make a difference, even if you played with somebody else's money. Still there is experiences to be shared, lessons to be learned, even if you are a professional manager. So I would not put myself in the bracket of an entrepreneur, but I will put myself as an intrapreneur, which many companies encourage now that, within the enterprise ecosystem, you encourage your managers to be entrepreneurs. Having said this, I was listening to Mr. Kanwal Reiki today saying that, look, the difference between an entrepreneur and a manager, though I, in broad sense, agree with you, Kanwal, but definitely the two categories are not independent of each other, or mutually exclusive kind of categories. I would like to tell briefly what Ram mentioned about, I think Puditra covered very well in terms of growing a small business. Would like to touch upon a few points in terms of building the organization, building the people, recruiting, retaining, and then growing into an institution. I think there was good definition of institutions came up in the earlier session. Institution is one thing which I think Ram made in earlier that, there are entrepreneurs who build an entrepreneur to sell off, divest, and then get to the next business. I mean, serial entrepreneurs who will be here tomorrow. But there are also entrepreneurs who will build for next generations to come, which definitely there's a need for institutionalization of an enterprise. Just to give my own example, I work for AVT Group. It's two companies which I manage since last 17 years. In 1995, we started with less than 50 employees. Today, we are close to 1,000 employees, including about 600 employees who are on a contract casual basis. We started with a turnover of almost nil because it was a startup phase. One is AVT McCormick, which is a joint venture with the global giant in spices McCormick. And another one is AVT Natural, which is a listed company in the Mumbai and Chennai stock exchanges. Now both these companies put together, the turnover today is about 550 crores. And we employ more than 1,000 people. So I've gone through this growth phase, which Puditra explained so well, in terms of celebrating success. Sometimes we only wonder we celebrate success too much. In the disco, we don't have, I think those days we didn't have a disco in Kochi. I think we have one disco in the same hotel. So this experience I would like to share with you in terms of, in my case it was totally different because the promoters, the owners of the company is sitting in Chennai. So what happens, the physical distance itself creates some level of autonomy, some level of independence of operation. If the boss is sitting next door, it's totally different. So it definitely has given a kind of independence and run it like your own organization, though you are basically asking somebody else to invest money. I was watching the TV day before yesterday, and I know the Starbucks is all around the news having created this joint venture with Tata, and both Ratan Tata and Starbucks CEO were there in the TV. It was very interesting what he told when we talk about growth. I think his name is Howard Schultz, who is the CEO of Starbucks. He was narrating the story of Starbucks. In 1971, they started with one store. And I think Howard left in between. I think he had out of Starbucks for about 7 or 8 years and came back in 2008. Just to quote him, he says, don't take growth as a strategy. don't take growth as a strategy. It becomes somewhat seductive and addictive. And he gives example of this, like when he came back to Starbucks in 2008, and he says growth should not be a strategy, but it should be more of a tactic. Let me explain this, what he mentioned in the TV coverage when they started the JV with Tatas. He says growth sometimes becomes a carcinogen. It causes cancer in the enterprise system. The example he gave is that when he came back in 2008 and started analyzing why Starbucks was not doing, that was a recession time or global meltdown time, he found out some of the stores which had been opened were to be closed. They were just 18 months old, which means, he says, when there is a growth, it becomes a carcinogen. The disciplined decision making doesn't happen in a large organization. So growth should be more of a tactic, and that's a time when one should really look at the organization, the kind of decisions what we take. And it's a good lesson, and then we revamped the whole operation to see how Starbucks and now they are in India. Just coming to institutionalization of an already grown organization. The first thing is, the most difficult thing for an owner, for an entrepreneur, is to detach himself from the running of the business. I know there are people like Mr. Panikar who has professionalized his team. It's very easily said than done. I mean, this is not only with owners. I mean, as managers also, sometimes we get into the nitty-gritty of the business, and it's time for you to move out and hand over the business to your trusted team people. It's very difficult. It's not only for owners, it's for us also as professional managers, it becomes difficult. So I would suggest that, for entrepreneurs who are going to grow the small business and institutionalize it, there's a concept called detached attachment. In the sense, I think somebody else also referred, I think Ram only told about building an organization, and startup team is very important. It's very important that you have good team with you at the startup phase itself, and they grow along with you, and there can be a stage where you sort of pull yourself back, which is something called you are attached, but at the same time you are in a state of readiness to detach yourself from the day-to-day running of the business. There is a difference between ownership and management. I mean, a typical example we were talking earlier is the Marico, Harsh Mariwala. Right from day one, I understand, I've been talking to some of the Marico people. Harsh never used to be involved even from day one in terms of the day-to-day running of the business. And when the business grew to thousands of crores, he is very easily able to detach himself and still being the owner and guide the company to further growth. So institutionalization is a professionalization of your team. That's only one element in the whole thing. Pradipta referred to the terms of the SAP system and the process and systems and structures, which is equally important. So moving away from the day-to-day running is definitely a major thing for an entrepreneur or a professional manager. I think there was some reference, I think it is Arjun who told in the afternoon session that always recruit people smarter than you. I think one stand which I can take as a CEO is there's nobody smarter than me. I am the smartest in the world. So I can't recruit anybody smarter than me, which is not the truth at all. So if you recruit, in HR parlance you call it as cloning. You would like to take somebody of your gene or your quality. And I like what Ram mentioned earlier in the session just before that. Any individual will be good in one skill, which is maybe in marketing or maybe in project management or maybe in engineering or maybe in operations or HR. So you as an entrepreneur has got a skill in a particular field, and you need to supplement that to other team members. So the best thing will be when you start up the enterprise, have a startup team which supplements your skills, and then the institutionalization becomes relatively easier compared to what you start of all yourself. There's another issue here which we are facing now. We are in a growth phase. I like Pradipta's classification. I think we are still not grown to the maturity phase because it's only about 500 crores turnover. When you start recruiting people from outside, you need fresh talent. The salary mismatch between the existing people and the new people who are coming in from outside is vast, and especially in a place like Cochin. So that becomes a challenge again in institutionalizing. Finally, I would only like to say that it's easily said than done for an entrepreneur or a professional manager to detach himself from the organization which he has grown for a period of time. You have nurtured it. You have given all the water, fertilizer, everything what is required to grow the organization. At the end of the day, you say, okay, I am institutionalizing it. I have a system and a structure in place, and then move on. It's easily said than done, but it definitely needs strategies and systems in place right from day one, so that you have a set of people and you can be slightly detached from the organization. That's all from my side, and thanks, Ty, for giving me this opportunity to address the crowd. Thank you very much.
Mariki has two views. One as an entrepreneur, and now as an advisor to one of the largest venture capitalists. So he is able to look at it from two views and talk to us about actually institution building. And so Mariki, over to you.
Good evening. I think as a backdrop, before I share a couple of my experiences, just 2-3 of them, as we need to watch our clock. Mr. Petrora coming on the television by 5:15 on the video screen. I think the basic thing of an entrepreneur, in my experience and observation, has been how does this individual who puts in own money, later when he grows, borrows other people's money, is a custodian of whose ever wealth, angel, fools, relatives, PE, whoever. And finally, when he wants to institutionalize his company, how does he sustain the growth? How does he sustain profitability? How does he scale the business? And finally, the phrase that we use, does he institutionalize his enterprise? And how does he do it? I think the basic thing of an entrepreneur, I think the world over is the same. He deals, in my view, he has two challenges, which is all through the up to the growth phase, and possibly his managers take over in the institutional phase. What are these? Managing uncertainty. I think that's one great challenge. It starts from the startup, goes to growth. I'm not saying it's not there, Ramraj, in the institutional phase, but there the entrepreneur has already built a team of leadership around him during the scale-up operations. And now the team, which sometimes the Japanese, in the good old days, used to call 1, 5, 9, 15, 25. 1, 5, 9, 15, 25. So the entrepreneur, when he started, would know his 5 colleagues in the same room, in the same lounge, the same cabin. And then these 5 guys, as the organization grows, should really know everything other than the sexual habits of the colleagues. Up to that level, they should know 9 more people in the organization. And these 9 should know 15, and you can run an enterprise up to 5,000 people. But if one guy, the entrepreneur, who knows his 5 colleagues around him, whom he hires at whichever stage of development, and they in turn hire 9 people, and they in turn do the 15, 25, they can run an organization. If the culture of the organization during the startup and the growth phase has certain solid foundations. What are these foundations? These are the ingredients that help to build what we loosely term an institution or an institutionalized process. To my mind, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's the culture. Because every organization needs finance. A reasonable number of organizations, whether 30 crores or 50 crores or 100 crores, you can have 10 people, 500, scale is always a challenge. So what is this culture? The culture stems from the leadership, the management capabilities, and the team building skills of the entrepreneur and the leader during the startup and the growth phase. When I started a radio company, much against the wisdom of all the consultants, and in Hindi, the conclusion the day I launched my first radio station was, and I had to hide the report from the promoters, was, who listens to radio? Article comes from that. Now this was at the time we were launching the first radio station. So obviously I had to cheat and we didn't show the report to the board. But the conviction and faith It is part of your cultural traits as you build an organization. What are these? What are these traits? These traits are some that come naturally to many entrepreneurs, sometimes with a blend of bringing in leaders and people from outside the organization post the growth phase, Ramraj. I feel they build a culture both of autonomy as well as a 50% micromanagement. That is, you're in it and you're not in it. Sometimes we tend to use the word, this organization is professional, this organization is proprietary, and this organization is now institutional. What is institutionalization? In a very, very narrow sense of the definition, when you say I've institutionalized this radio corporation, this media corporation, we are talking about a permanency. We are talking about values and intentions way beyond individuals or groups of individuals. That's what the institutionalization is about. What are the other things that go with institutionalization? There is some kind of expectation. If it's a B2C business, the brand itself, as somebody keeps often quoting levers, there's some expectation, there's a perception, there's a halo effect. If you're not in a B2C but a B2B business, your company's reputation. In an Indian system where the caste society, I'm using it in positive terms, says, so where does your son-in-law work? You say Parigi Associates. It doesn't click, it doesn't excite the people at the social gathering. But as you rightly say, once you say it's IBM or any of the big groups, there seems to be more interest. But I think that is changing. And I'll tell you why it is changing and why it's a greater challenge today to institutionalize your company in my limited experience of starting 6, 7, 9 companies in India and overseas. The people coming into the workforce, my son who's 35, my daughter who's 28, their reflexes, their expectations from an employer, from an investor is far different, Ramraj, than what I and you expected when we got into the market, called the job market, whatever market. The institutional response to my family issues, to my career issues, to my training issues were so different because they knew that this particular him or her would be in this corporation at least 10 or 15 or 20 years. But if you now look at institutionalizing a company which is 10 years old, 15 years old, particularly in the services or media or entertainment sector, how many employees live through the 15 years? What are the expectations of people coming in? So when you want to institutionalize, I think we are moving away from the motivation, the passion, the pattern the entrepreneurship had to a managerial culture. Nothing wrong with it. It's a demand. It's high-tech. But how do we keep high touch during a high-tech atmosphere of institutionalizing? I think that is the challenge when you institutionalize. The promoter is no longer available in the 35 stations across the country. You don't get to see the promoter. You don't get to see the vice president. Maybe it's a video conference. Maybe you meet them at an annual meet. But how do you retain the warmth that the entrepreneur had when it was a far, far smaller organization? I think that's a very big challenge. And people ask, what is this culture of an organization which is so-called successful and institutionalized? You don't need a sociologist or an anthropologist to tell you what an office culture is about. In my experience, I humbly submit to this August gathering that the definition of culture of an organization and institutionalization comes from a simple few words: how things are done out there. How are you treated when you're recruited? How are you treated during your mid-course corrections of your midlife crisis? How are you treated when you mess up, don't meet targets, and there's a separation policy? That defines the culture of the company. So the challenge in institutionalization is we need a blend of people moving away from motivation but onto the incentive schemes. How do you manage it and still keep fire in the belly? How does the promoter or the team of 2-3 guys who set up a large IT company in Bangalore, I won't name it, how will they culturally keep the enthusiasm of the middle-level leadership going in this large IT company when there's a change? Institutionalized demands that there is a reasonable, a comfort degree of predictability in the behavior patterns of that particular enterprise which has a large turnover, a large scale, either from the stakeholder point of view, from any stakeholder point of view, how we get there. I think that's the culture of the organization. And the culture ingredients, in my limited understanding, are harvested depending on how you sow the seed during the startup phase, the growth phase, and culture. I'm not mentioning names of companies for which I oversee case studies in the IT sector globally known today, but what happens from the stage of leadership? Because institutionalization by very definition means permanency. It means standardization. So does it kill entrepreneurship? No, it doesn't. I can give you examples of companies which are over 5,000 crores per hectare, over 5,000 people where I work, where the entrepreneurship, brand after brand, year after year, we make profit and it has been successful. So, thank you for your patience and we are open to questions. Yeah, thank you.
Open to a few questions. I believe 5:15 sharp will be confirmed that Pitroda will be online. So, few questions and then we'll be ready to listen to Mr. Pitroda. Anybody? Mike, speak. No? Actually saving 10 minutes? Wow. All right. So on your behalf, I'd like to... Anybody? I can't see. I think it's a long day. I think we're waiting for Santa Clara. So thank you all. And I'd on your behalf, I'd like to thank the panelists for this evening session. So thank you very much.
I'd like to request the present members of speakers, please. Thank you, gentlemen. We have another session coming at 5:15. Why on the way to go? We have another set of eminent panelists joining us, and we'll be having Mr. Sam Shakura coming on video conference from Chicago. Thank you. Telecom inventor and entrepreneur who has spent over 4 decades in information and communications technology and related human and national development initiatives. Credited with having laid the foundation of India's technology and telecommunications revolutions in the 1980s, Mr. Pitroda has been a leading campaigner to help bridge the global digital divide. During his tenure as advisor to Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi in the 1980s, Mr. Pitroda headed 6 technology missions related to telecommunications, water, literacy, immunization, dairy, and oilseeds. He was also the founder and first chairman of India's Telecom Commission. In these roles, he helped revolutionize India's development policies and philosophies with a focus on access to technology as a key to social change. He is currently advisor to the Prime Minister of India on public information infrastructure and innovation, and he has undertaken the ambitious task of providing a plan for creating digital infrastructure in the country for enhancing governance and improving delivery of public services. He is also the chairman of the National Innovation Council, which is working on several initiatives to boost innovation performance in the country. Mr. Pitroda is also heading the expert group for modernization of Indian Railways, constituted by the Ministry of Railways. He is also the chairman of the Smart Grid Task Force set up under the aegis of the Ministry of Power, Government of India. And if that's not enough, he also has been appointed one of the founding commissioners of the United Nations Broadband Commission for Digital Development. He holds close to 100 worldwide patents and has published and lectured widely in the US, Europe, Latin America, and Asia. Please help me in welcoming Mr. Sam Pitroda with a warm round of applause. Thank you, Shruti.
Next, we have the eminent speaker, Mr. M. Arun Kumar, who is a partner and member of the Board of Directors of KPMG. Based in Silicon Valley, he led the management consulting practice in the West Coast. He also leads the U.S.-India practice for the firm. Mr. Arun serves on the Board of Directors of the U.S.-India Business Council. He is a member of the Executive Advisory Group of the Chancellor of the University of California, Santa Cruz. He formerly served on Stanford University's Humanities and Sciences Council. He is a co-editor of the book on Kerala's economy, Crouching Tiger, Sacred Cows, published by DC Books 2006. Arun received his Master's in Management from Sloan School of Management, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and a Bachelor's degree in Physics from the University of Kerala. He started his career in India as a member of Tata Executive Services. Welcoming Mr. Arun.
Our session chair is Mr. G. Vijayaraghavan, member of the Kerala State Planning Board. He is also the promoter president, VMA Consultants Private Limited. VMA is a venture management and consulting company comprising of a core group of professionals with extensive exposure into wide-ranging real-life business, institutional, and policy contexts internationally. The focus areas of VMA are IT, organizational restructuring, project management, and education. He is also the Honorary Director, National Institute of Speech and Hearing since 1997. He also served as member, Southern Region Advisory Committee, Small Industries Development Bank of India, and is a member, International Expert Panel on Science Parks set up by UNIDO. He is the President, International Association of Science Parks, Asia Pacific Division since 1996. I welcome Mr. G. Vijayaraghavan to join us on that.
Next, we have on the panel Mr. P.K. Agarwal, CEO Thai Global oversees the development of programs and support the goals of Thai chapters worldwide to advance the Thai mission of promoting entrepreneurship through mentoring, networking, and education. In his role, in his shape of things to come. He has over 25 years of experience in government technology spanning both public and private sectors. Previously, he held positions of Vice President at ACS, Executive Vice President and Chief Information Officer at NIC. He started his professional career as a management consultant for EDS Corporation. Mr. Agarwal has a bachelor's in engineering from IIT New Delhi and master's degree from California State University, Sacramento and the University of California, Berkeley. Welcoming Mr. Agarwal.
Last but not the least, we have with us Mr. K.T. Chambi, who is the managing partner of Ernst & Young and is based in Bangalore. He has over 15 years of extensive experience of working with large multinationals and entrepreneurial growth companies based in Bangalore and Kochi. He has closely worked with companies such as Axel, Helion, Blackstone, Sector, Capital, ABB, Manipal Group, and the list goes on. I request Mr. K.T. Chambi to please join us on stage. With that, I'd like to turn the stage over to our session chair, Mr. G. Vijayaraghavan.
Mr. Ambatroda, I'm not sure whether you can see us. We can see you very clearly. Thank you very much.
I can hear you. I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Yeah, I think they're showing the crowd. They'll probably get the other camera in place. But just a couple of things before we start. Thank you very much for being up so early in the morning. It's quite early in the morning in Chicago. Thank you very much for being with us. We had the Chief Minister here earlier in the day. He formally inaugurated the session. He of course talked about the focus that Kerala is going to give on entrepreneurship and the kind of changes that were announced during the Emerging Kerala event. Before I turn it over to you, because the way we decided on this is you're going to speak and then the panel will probably react and have a discussion with you. We will then open it up to the audience. But before that, I would just like to thank a few people in your office, Ashima, Sukman and Anna, for the excellent work they've done in coordinating this whole event. I would like to thank Mr. Chanana at the Planning Commission and Anand at NIC for putting the link together, and Jayesh and Rajiv from staff on this side to get the link in place. So thank you very much. I also want to thank Mr. N.R. Panikkar for getting together this session. So Sam, open to you, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say. And like we had...
I cannot hear you anymore.
You can't hear me anymore. Yeah, is it better now? Can you hear me now? Can I get the camera at least focusing towards you? No,
So there is some location they said, they are just making this.
Okay,
Just give a comment.
okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it's the international link part where they have a problem. It worked well last evening, it worked well this morning. It worked well from 4:45. Then when we went down, something goes wrong. But let's see. I don't know, do something about it.